Now, Joe has been talking over the last 8 weeks about Romans chapter 1 to 8, and there is mostly good news to be found in these chapters. I mean, it does talk about sin, and it talks about fallenness, and we need to talk about those things. But in these chapters, Paul has laid out his ideas for what the gospel means in light of what Jesus has done. Today we come to a different section, chapters 9 to 11. I'm only going to be speaking on chapter 9 today, but these 3 chapters have a bit of a different focus. They focus on God's original chosen people, which are the Israelites, the Jews. The Israelites have been part of God's plan from the start, and God wants everyone to know that they are still part of God's plan. But because God had to start his plan somewhere, he had to choose a place to do that, and he chose to do that with the Israelites. And within the Israelite community, within the Israelite nation, there were people, individuals who were chosen for special tasks, who were not necessarily the ones that you and I would have chosen to do that. And this is where the change comes in. The Jews thought that the position and the prestige of Abraham were the reasons why they were being chosen by God. But God comes along and pulls the rug out from under that idea, and he begins to choose people who seem to be odd, to be the odd people out. People who didn't seem to be the obvious choice for the task at hand. And what Paul is really doing here is telling us this is going to happen. Things are going to happen that change your life. We need to expect it. We shouldn't be surprised when those things happen, because they're going to happen. And we kind of need to get used to it, which can be tough. We have to know our place. We have to allow God to be God. And we have to allow him to do what only he can do. I'll call nobodies and make them somebodies. I'll call the unloved and make them beloved. You are called God's living children. We go from being nobodies to somebodies. We go from being unloved to being loved. About a week and a half ago, I'm reading articles online, and I come across a story about a guy named Jack Haley, who passed away very recently. He was 51 years old, and he was a basketball player. He was a member of probably the greatest team that has ever been assembled in the NBA, which is the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls. That team, during the regular season, went 72 wins and 10 losses. They went on to win the championship that year. That's the best record of any team that's ever played in the NBA. And Jack Haley was a part of that team. Jack Haley played 7 minutes at the very end of the last regular season game of that season. He didn't see any court time before that. He didn't see any court time in the playoffs. He played for 7 minutes. And yet, when they won the championship, Jack Haley was in on it like everybody else. He got a championship ring. He popped the cork on the champagne. He was part of the team. He was in. Even though he only played 7 minutes, he was in. When we look at the story of the prodigal son, we always like to see ourselves as the younger son who comes back and is shown grace. We don't want to be identified with the older brother who's kind of looking down their nose, but that's exactly what we do. We tend to look down our nose at other people who haven't figured things out as well as we think we have. We'll use some kind of rules that we've attached ourselves to in order to make ourselves better, and we remind ourselves that at least we're not like those people. The truth is that we are not better because of how much or how little money we make, or how we dress, or what we drive, or where we go for vacations, or whether our theological stance on any given topic is superior to someone else's. We just need to stop it. We need to stop. And God has shown us over and over again that all of that stuff does not matter. At the same time, as we're thinking about that, we need to keep in mind that wherever you find yourself in that kind of scenario, you're in. You are treasured by God. But what he wants to see is our faithfulness to him, nothing else. And that is what evens the playing field between rich and poor, between slave and free, between the boss and the employee, between the intelligent and the simple, between the clean and the dirty.